Gus. Cool. Hey everyone, so my name is Scott Elliott. I've been working with dogs for over 10 years now. I was operating under the name The Dependable Canine and then ended up switching to Nature and Play because as I've grown, learned, evolved, I have connected back to nature. I wanted to understand dogs for who they really are. And so now we are looking to really focus on helping people that the traditional methods are no longer working. They are not able to actually save these dogs' lives that are experiencing severe behavioral problems, especially revolving around aggression. So this is the mission that I'm on. I've been really focused on that. I've went into a shelter environment and implemented my program there and had great success with the dogs. And I actually have Michelle here with me today, who I met through this experience at a shelter that's local to here. And we're gonna ask Michelle her thoughts about the shelter, about my program, and just kind of hear her perspective on things. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you.
And I first want you to unlock that for me. So when it comes to your background, Michelle, before I even got to the shelter, I want to know how long you were working in the shelter,
okay,
and how long you were working in the shelter, your experiences prior to me getting there.
So I worked at the shelter for about 6.5 years, and between the 6 years, it was just chaotic. The energy levels were high. Fence fighting, dog fighting. I mean, redirect, dogs getting euthanized. I thought that was the normal, because I had never worked at a shelter before. So working there, I thought this was a normal thing to do, and apparently it's not.
And so when you first started out, what was your position?
Just a kennel staff.
Kennel staff. And then as you continue forward, your title changed. And
Yeah.
what did that change to?
Kennel manager.
Cool. And so what motivated you to start working with the shelter?
Just always been a dog lover, Have witnessed a few people being rude to dogs and not discipline, but abusing them and stuff, and just grew up not wanting to have the dogs deal with that, so decided, to take care of them and just kind of show them the way of a better life.
So what I hear is your heart led you into the shelter because you really didn't want to see the animals really suffering.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you were there, it sounds to me like they still were suffering, right?
Yeah.
Even though there's tons of people there that say that they really care and they're trying to provide a better life,
right?
But the environment was still very, very stressful.
Right.
Correct.
Yep.
And so on the flip side of that, what were some of the positive things? What were some of the rewarding things about working at the shelter prior to me being?
Right. Just seeing the dogs getting adopted, getting into loving homes, and mostly long terms. If we are successful about that, they do get adopted and they don't show back up, so which is super cool to see. And so it's just mostly just getting them out of the shelter and having a better life for them.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to more problematic dogs with behavioral problems, especially revolving around aggression,
right?
What were those dogs' lives like in the shelter, and was it difficult or easy to find them homes?
It's pretty difficult. I mean, most of those dogs just stay there for a little less than a year. If they're aggressive, fence fighting, strong, then the staff would take care of them and, walk them and stuff, because volunteers weren't strong enough to do that. So it's just up to us to make sure they got out.
Yeah. And say a dog has been there a long time, or they keep getting returned for behavioral problems, especially again around aggression.
Right.
What was the course of action that ultimately is taken?
Getting euthanized.
Yeah, and I know the shelter that you were working at. That number is relatively low compared to other shelters across the country, right?
Right.
Yeah. But still
happening.
a handful of dogs. What would you say? Every 6 months or so?
Yeah. It's usually about maybe 1 or 2 dogs. I mean, it's not a lot, but enough
to impact you mentally and emotionally, right?
Yeah.
And so when this would take place, how did people feel about it?
Not too happy about it. I mean, we just had to do what we had to do. And
what kind of things would people suggest when, or be saying or thinking when these type of decisions were being planned and were going to be followed through with?
Get a dog trainer, try to foster him out.
And were these things successful? Did they typically work?
No. We never fostered him out because it's dangerous, so we don't feel liable for that. So
yeah, because if they're fostering, it's still under the shelter's responsibility.
Right.
Unlike a dog that is adopted. Right. Once it's adopted, that's on the owner.
Right.
Not the shelter anymore. So really, a lot of liability comes into these type of dogs, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so when we look at my program coming in, when you first heard I was going to come, when you first saw me there, how did you think it feel?
Well, it's just, at first straight up I did not like you. I mean, it's just more of I don't know who you were. I've heard, stories about you through the grapevine, kind of stuff. And so seeing you with other dogs and you working with them, I was like, this isn't going to work. I don't know what you're doing. You're just banging bowls around. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. So
yeah,
I thought I'd give you a shot that one day, going to group, probably teaching the volunteers. I'm like, okay, maybe the more I see it, the more I can see the dog's difference and their demeanors kind of, chilling out. So I thought I'd just give you a shot.
What made you think to even give me a chance? Why not just stick with how you initially felt?
Well, because I'm not going to judge a book by its cover, I just get to know you one-on-one and see if these actually are true or not, and obviously it's not.
Yeah. And so you mentioned hearing things through the grapevine.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you were hearing through the grapevine?
Let's see, it's just the way you're disciplining the dogs. A lot of people didn't like that, how, no treats, no toys, a lot of just the
way that, way that I was saying about how we need to go about affection, those type of things.
Or positive training,
So typically, do you find that most people, they're really gung-ho and open to positive reinforcement, but once you start getting into the discipline, the more of the aversives, is that where you find that usually people have problems?
Yes. Yeah.
And why do you think that? Why do you think that people would have problems when it comes to discipline for dogs?
I don't know, maybe it's just harder for them to see, even though people do discipline their own kids and they don't have a problem with it, but when it comes to dogs and they start having an issue, which I think is kind of weird how people don't have issues with shock collars and e-collars either.
Yeah.
Or prong collars.
As much as what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, I've used prong collars, remote collars. To me, I think that what I've evolved into now is so much better than the prong collar and the remote collars.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah. And so once I come in, there's people that are kind of feeling the way that you first felt, right?
Yeah.
And did you find that they were as open-minded as you were? Or did you find that some of these people were just continuing to judge that book by its cover?
I think a couple people still judged a lot, and then the other people started kind of coming around and see what you're doing and kind of curious about it.
Yeah. And when we start looking at the flip side of these things, of the preconceptions, what were there anything that you were hearing on the positive side, or was it mainly just negative?
I think also it was just mostly negative until people saw the positives. Like, oh yeah, that's from Scott's program, and then all of a sudden they shut it down.
Yeah. And so what are some of the positive things that you started to see with the implementation of my program?
Stress reduced, long-term dogs getting adopted, not fence fighting, dog fighting. I mean, to a point, and then just a lot more less stressful and kind of fun environment to work in.
Yeah, and so once we started implementing the program, the day-to-day operation, as far as letting dogs out, cleaning the kennels, did you find that these day-to-day operations, these dynamics, improved? Did they stay the same, or did they get worse?
I think they improved.
And what kind of things improved for you personally?
Probably just the cutting down time and cleaning kennels once I got a hang of, doing it and stuff like that. I mean, probably 20 minutes shave down time with kennels, and everybody's outside doing their own thing. So,
and so when we look at the animals, specifically the animals, not the people,
right?
Did you see any negative effects with the animals' well-being with the implementation of my program?
Nope.
No. What about on the people side?
Yeah.
And what were those negative effects?
Mostly a lot of piss because you were walking. They couldn't walk the dogs. They couldn't, hype up them, and then it's still back to you and your personality. A lot of people didn't like and how you approach things. So.
And so when we look at these people, before I got there, were there issues still with these people that had problems with me?
Yes.
So they had already been given the staff a hard time, and other volunteers that were trying to follow the shelter's instructions, right? Like, so this isn't anything necessarily new.
No.
It's just kind of a redirection onto me now.
Right.
Is that what you were seeing?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we look at these positive changes and we look at the difficulties, what I'm hearing is the animal well-being, all positive.
Yep.
But then when we look at the people and the challenges that arose, there was friction there, but it wasn't anything new other than it's just I'm the new thing to target.
Right.
Okay. So when we started transitioning more and more into my approach, how did it differ from the traditional shelter approach?
I mean, it was a lot better to do your approach because all the dogs got out. Everybody was outside for literally half of the day until feeding time. And then without you being at Brightside, we took the dogs out 7 times a day for about 15-minute walks and just kind of just that whole rotation thing.
Yeah, so what you were seeing is that the dogs spent less time in their kennels, way more time outside.
Yes.
They were able to be together, socialize, have what at least I think, and I think that you're on the same page, is that the dogs had a way more enjoyable experience being in a shelter environment with the implementation of my program versus the traditional shelter methods.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when we look at these changes, and I know that the discipline component is where I think most of the problem comes from. And people look at discipline and they, I think, misconstrue it with abuse.
Right.
And did you find that what I was doing was abusive, harmful to the dogs?
No.
And so you saw positive effects through the use of discipline.
Yeah.
And do you feel like I was just disciplining anything and everything, like, or do you feel like I was very deliberate in why I was disciplining?
Yeah, I mean, you had your reasons. If you see a dog kind of going after another dog, you have to step in and...
And then did you find that the dog's social ability would improve over time?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so I know that you started really running groups. You were one of the main people, right?
Right.
And so when you started running groups, did you find at first you had to insert yourself more?
Yeah.
Right? But as time went on, did you find that was less and less?
Yeah, it was just more when you left, then they were kind of like, wondering where you were and who's this new lady. So,
Yeah, you had to let them know, right?
Yeah,
and say, hey, I understand what's going on here.
Right.
I'm going to keep things safe. I got your back.
Right.
There's certain, hey, you can't do that. We're advocating for them, right?
Right.
And do you feel like the connection with the dogs deepened with my program, or did it weaken or get worse than what it was prior to me getting there?
Definitely gotten better. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you find that you really started to know who the dog was, like on a very personal level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little more understanding between one another.
And when beforehand, if somebody was looking to adopt a dog before I got there, and they said, "How's this dog with dogs?" What often was the answer?
Typically we didn't know. I used my old dog as a dog tester, so I mean, and I typically would pick the dog that might be dog friendly. I'm not gonna fling him to another aggressive dog. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like a hit and miss of depends on how your dog is and depending how this dog is together. So it's just kind of not a straight up answer.
Yeah. So once we started implementing my program, do you feel like we were able to provide adopters with more information about the kind of dog they were getting?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right. And this helped make sure that we were placing them in homes that were going to be more likely to be long term.
Right. Instead of just 2 months and they're back.
Yeah. And when it comes to dogs being returned, was that a pretty frequent thing beforehand?
Yeah, it usually depends on
kind of
the situation
what dog.
was. Yeah.
But my guess is that, and let me know if I'm wrong, but my guess is that beforehand, since you guys didn't have as much information, that people were bringing the dogs back saying they're not good with dogs, or they're not good with cats, or the list goes on of things that you guys had no idea about.
Right.
And so there was a lot of adopting out, returning back for just lack of knowledge.
Right. Because like when the dogs came back of whatever kind of thing happened to the previous adopter, we put that on the website and be like, hey, we know more about this dog now because we found out.
Yeah, we found out when it went away.
Yeah. Sorry about that, but
and so typically, say I adopt a dog, I bring it back, and I said it's not good with dogs. How would you now navigate moving forward? Prior to me getting there, would it be, hey, this dog can't go into a home with other dogs? Was that a typical response to if a dog was returned with saying there was issues towards other dogs?
Yeah, I usually put a no, kind of an only dog situation.
Yep. And then would that automatically make it to where a family with kids also couldn't adopt a dog that had if a dog had a problem with dogs, would they say it can't go with kids either? Or was that a separate issue for the shelter?
I think a separate issue.
Okay. And so as we're implementing the program, there is some people that are pushing back. Mm-hmm. They're claiming abuse. At one point, even some people were saying that I get off on abusing women.
Right.
And to me, most of the shelter, particularly
all the shelter,
all women,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I was the only guy once the other male employee left, right?
Right.
And so, did you see any abuse towards dogs, towards women?
No.
Yeah.
No.
And so, why do you think people would say something like that?
I think just the way your image is and what they personally feel like about you is more on a personal level than a business kind of situation.
And do you think that they were open-minded to listening to what I had to say?
No.
And when they would if they approached me with concerns or their viewpoint, do you feel that I was dismissive, or do you feel like I really would listen to them and try to talk to them about what they were bringing to the table?
You're pretty open about all the volunteers coming up to you. It's just they're kind of the aggressive side of coming towards you and kind of being a bully.
Yeah. And do you feel like I really tried working with these people that were not really understanding or agreeing with me? Do you feel like I was trying to come up with ways to still incorporate them into the program?
Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually we get to a point where I think that it's best to let them go, because this is something that has been going on before I even got there. The same people have been problems, right? And now I'm trying to do everything I can to get them onto the same page so that we can actually help the dogs create a better work environment.
Right.
And they just seem to not have it.
No, instruction is not like to follow instructions either, so it's just kind of like their way or the highway.
So you think that some of this was just let's make these claims because they're real serious to get him out of there.
Yeah.
And so I know that the director was receiving emails, calls, complaining about me, and I said, hey, tell all of them that they can come down, look at what I'm doing, ask questions, actually look at this thing. Do you find that to be true to what you saw of how I conducted myself, that I was open to anybody coming and checking out what I was doing?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so as we start to move through the program, things start to get easier on the dog front, but harder on the people front.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Which I thought our whole thing is that we're at the shelter trying to help the dogs.
Yeah.
You know? And so I found that people like the results, but they just don't like how I got there.
Right.
But then the way that they're suggesting never could lead to something like this, right? Because weren't they implementing what they thought was best for the dogs prior to me getting there?
Yeah, again, like another trainer when it comes to, small groups. I mean, we did small groups back in the day, but like I said, it's just for the friendlier dogs, not the dogs who already had issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just pretty much targeting the easy dogs to get out of the shelter, but the harder ones are still going to be sitting there. Yeah.
And when it comes to these challenging dogs and trainers coming in to try to help them, was it on a one-on-one basis where they're trying to teach basic obedience commands like sit and down and that kind of thing?
Yeah, usually the trainers will just take that, one dog, and the staff doesn't take that dog, so you can just work on them one by one.
Mm-hmm. And how did the staff, the volunteers, feel about other trainers not allowing for them to interact with that dog?
I mean, it's still kind of like, they didn't like it too much.
Mm-hmm.
Usually people got upset about it because, they're like, I'm supposed to be taking care of that dog, but you just took that dog away from me, so...
Mm-hmm. So, in some ways, what I hear is there's some people that are really there for their thing.
Right.
What they want to do.
Right.
And so when we look at the problem dogs, and I know that like with Dizzy, there was other trainers that had come in.
Yep.
And how did that go?
Not well at all.
What did that look like?
I mean, I don't think we kept that trainer for more than a week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he already was aggressive towards men,
mm-hmm.
and dogs. So their approach obviously didn't work with Dizzy, so that's kind of another target on his back.
Yeah, and what was Dizzy acting like? Like, I know the aggression towards men, but like, you know, him being in his kennel and yeah, just kind of explain Dizzy.
Oh man, he was a neurotic, strong, really strong dog, and start, you know, spinning in his kennel for God knows how long. Whenever somebody walks up to his kennel, he's just going crazy, and he wouldn't not simmer down.
Yeah, and what I remember is that like he could literally run on the walls.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
he could like make a whole loop without even touching the ground.
Yeah, I mean, there was one night I walked in, and he just now arrived at Brightside, and he came and just barging out the door. It scared the living crap out of me. I was like, oh my God. And he's just freaking out. I'm like, who took in this dog? I'm like, oh my God.
And so a dog like Dizzy.
Yeah.
Is this a dog that would have made the euthanasia list?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And once, you know, I'm a man, and so once I worked with him, what was the change that you saw?
He's more confident in other people and men. I mean, I had a few clients come down, men who were typically like that, and he didn't react. You know, he knew he had your back, so he was safe. But after that, he started changing his dynamics.
And what about in the kennel? How did that change?
Better, a lot better. You know, a lot more calmer, no more spinning around. He's just chilling.
Yeah. He could actually just sleep.
Yeah,
hang
yeah,
out,
yeah.
chill, and he wasn't running around on the walls like he's Spider-Man.
Right.
So when we're thinking about, okay, so there's these positive changes in the dogs. Things are going really well. When it comes to the adopters, do you find that I was looking to provide, I would say we're looking to provide the adopters with information on the dogs, and now we can provide a lot more information on the dogs. And how do you think people, these adopters, responded to me or you instructing them that this might not be the right kind of dog because of this, or that, hey, if you get this dog, you can't do these things?
Right.
How do you think people responded to that?
A lot of them were upset, complained about it, you know, because they want this one dog, and if you tell them the truth about it, then they're kind of started raising an eyebrow on it. So.
And when it comes to the way that I would present information, I found that some people really appreciated it. Right. Other people didn't at all.
Right.
And then they would complain, right? Why do you think that is?
Probably just, I mean, not usually used to people who are being upfront, honest, and just kind of blunt, here it is, you know. Just kind of the way you approach things, kind of maybe just kind of back up a little bit.
And so, you know, what I hear is, you know, that straightforwardness can be abrasive to some people, and then that rubs them the wrong way,
right?
And that could create issue,
more of an issue.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so what I hear is like, hey, Scott, you could prove on your social abilities with different kinds of people, and, right? Right. And I agree with I agree that I can be very straightforward, more blunt, because I'm just looking at more of this is what's happening, right. And that's what I say, instead of being a little bit more nuanced with my approach when communicating certain ideas.
Right. Yeah.
And so when we look at someone that adopts a dog, and if they had any issues, do you feel like I was looking to offer them assistance with this new program if they were ever to have any issues? Yeah.
You know, phone number, business card, whatever, you always let them know. Yeah,
because I mean, the real goal is to keep dogs from coming back.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, let's try to place them in the right home, and then if they need support, let's be there for support.
Right.
And so that was my whole idea, was that it was going to be where we learn about the dogs. They are in an environment that we can reduce their stress levels.
Right.
We can then learn about them through social groups. We can then put them in different situations with cats around town, really evaluating them way deeper than what was happening prior,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It was like a lot of things I heard was, well, if they walk nice on leash, then they're a
They're
good dog.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they take them home, and then they try to kill the cat or something,
Yeah,
right? Or
yeah.
they nip the
kids or
the
something.
kids, yeah. So as far as like working with the public and trying to get them to understand, there was kind of also the same kind of deal that some of the volunteers and maybe a few of the staff were saying,
right?
Because to me, we're so used to thinking of dogs in a certain way.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm looking at them for what I would say who they really are from nature's perspective.
Right.
Remove the idea of a pet, because this is an idea that we're placing onto the dog, is that they're a pet. They're an animal first, right? Then a dog, then a personality, then their breed, then they're a pet.
Right.
Right? And usually we think of them as a pet first.
Right.
And the ways that we've been taught, I think, on how we should be interacting with dogs, living with dogs, I find a lot of these things actually produce problems. And do you think that some of the reasons why it can rub some people the wrong way is because I talk against the toys and the games?
Right, yeah.
I talk about needing to share love and affection in a certain kind of way. I look at that often when we look at positive reinforcement, people are positively reinforcing negative behaviors.
Right.
They're literally reinforcing things that they don't like. And when we look at dogs, you'll never see a dog reward for good behaviors. And so to me, dogs can't even think like this. They can only think like a dog. Do you think that they can think like anything other than a dog, like a person? Do you think they can think like a cat?
No.
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 And so when I look at dogs, I say, how do they think? How do they view the world? Who are they?
Right.
And I connect to them there. And so then I can have conversations, and what I see is that dogs set boundaries. And this is through discipline, and it is through intimidation to a degree.
Yeah.
This is why, they have that look, they go to the growl, they show their teeth, they bark, they bite.
Right.
All to say, I don't like what you're doing, to change how you feel, to make you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Right? And when you saw people get bit, let's say, at the shelter before I got there, did people's behavior change? Did they feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go in there?
All the time, yeah.
All the time, right? So it's working for the dog. Like,
Yeah,
they're getting
like, cool.
the dog's getting the point across.
Yeah.
Do you think that the dog is thinking that is that abuse? Are they thinking, oh, I'm being abusive?
No.
Do people think that the dog's being abusive, or are they just being a dog?
Just being a dog.
Yeah. And then when I implement and I step into the dog world, all of a sudden, people start thinking, this is abuse.
Yeah, yeah.
But yet, they're willing to kill the dog versus discipline. And so I think that they're skipping steps. I think they're going from, oh, I don't want to say the truth, I don't want to tell them what I don't like, to I have to kill you because you keep doing what I don't like.
Right.
Right? And that's sad. Like, I think that, and let me ask you, would you rather be disciplined or killed?
Really be disciplined, I don't be killed.
Right?
I mean,
Right? We'd much rather experience something that
it's a learning lesson.
helps us learn so we can stay alive.
Right.
Right? And that's what we have to do with our dogs. We have to teach them what's going to get them in trouble.
Right.
Just like we would with kids. But see, the difference is that we're dealing with a human being versus a dog. We can't discipline the same way
Right.
with a dog that we would with a kid, because kids, you can say, look, I'm going to put you in timeout because of X. Hey, if you keep this up, you're not going to be allowed to do this.
Right.
I've heard people tell at the dog park, say, if you keep acting like this, you're not coming back for a week. Do you think dogs understand that?
No.
Me neither do I. I think that this is where, you know, we have to start changing the way that we view discipline, the way that we look at dogs, because if we don't, I believe that we're going to continue killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dogs.
Right.
And I don't think most people that are in the shelters have dogs. I don't think people want to be seeing that. And so the approaches that I find that everybody takes is get away from discipline, and we got to positively reinforce things. And to me, this is like equivalent to spoiling a child.
Right.
And what happens when you spoil children? What can happen?
Rotten.
You can have behavioral problems, right? Some kids you could spoil, and they might not be real bad.
Right.
Right? You can get away with it. They're still spoiled.
Yeah.
But they might not be a real problem.
Yeah.
But then other kids, they become a big problem, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, we have to look at the individual. And when you look at what I was doing, did you find that I just applied the same thing for every single dog? Is like, I have to discipline you like this? Or did you find that I fluctuated depending on each dog and each situation?
You took a different approach to each dog depending on how sensitive they are and how stubborn.
Yeah, so you would say that I would judge my level of discipline based on what kind of personality and what kind of situation I'm dealing with.
Yep.
So it wasn't this blanket, like, this is the discipline.
Right.
This is how I do it. It doesn't matter if you're sensitive or not, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really considering each individual. And when you first started looking at discipline, how did you feel about it?
It was weird at first, didn't think I should be able, doing it and stuff like that. But the more you do it, the more it gets easier.
Yeah, and why did you, at first, do you feel like that was something that was difficult?
Because everyone talks about not, disciplining your dog. I mean, I never was taught not to discipline a dog.
Yeah, so it was the feeling of the society's pressure that's placed on us that we go, oh, people don't want...
The judgment.
Yeah, we've been said that we shouldn't be doing this, right? And I 100% agree. I think that's what actually holds most people back. And I personally find that there's a lot of people that they'll be doing some crazy stuff behind closed doors. I think that you probably have some stories about people that had issue with me of what I'm doing, but you were like, what? Like, I've seen you body slam dogs and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I was like I've worked, right by your side until you left. I was like, I didn't see a thing.
and if you saw someone doing something that you felt was inappropriate, I know that from hearing through the grapevine that you would confront them on that.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
And you'd have a big problem with it, correct?
Yeah.
And I never experienced this at all with you. I never experienced you have
that's a good thing.
Yeah, I never experienced you have any problem with me.
Yeah.
Right? Because you didn't find that it was even in the same category. But yet these people that were saying I'm doing it, you're doing it.
Yeah,
you're the one that's actually being abusive.
Yeah, there's so many like altercations. I had a freaking, dog walkers and stuff. I'm like, he's not abusing your dogs, but
Yeah.
It's like trying to talk to a brick wall. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. So when I look at the issue, this is why I think that we need to be so much more focused on educating people.
Yeah. Because
you see that this works with dogs, and I think that it's better than anything that anybody has to offer. You mentioned trainers coming in. They have to try to work one-on-one. And have you ever heard anyone say that, oh, it just we can't help them here because the environment's too stressful?
Yeah.
Isn't that a common thing that people say? And to me, we create the environment. We're responsible for this environment that's stressful.
Right.
So why is it stressful? What's happening? And And I think that the dogs, they really are in survival mode. They don't know what's going on. They don't feel safe. They are constantly in a life and death situation.
Yeah.
Is how they feel. And so for me, I come in and I try to start showing them structure, giving them, hey, don't do it like that. And then they're able to start seeing that they're safe, and this is where the danger is, and this is where I can be safe, and this is who this guy will protect me. And so when I had all the dogs out, did you find that the dogs wanted to be with me, or did they not want to be with me?
Most of them followed you around, and the rest of them just kind of laid down and chilled.
Yeah.
But nobody was cowering in the corner or anything.
Nobody. And to me, this is where respecting each individual personality. If you want to go chill out and sleep, go do it.
Go you do. Yeah.
Like, if you want to go sniff out there, then do it.
Yeah.
If you want to hang out by me, so be it. You know?
Yeah.
It's like respecting, like, them just being able to be a life and be. And I think that a lot of people were very selfish when it comes to dogs. We want, it's me, I. We want them to always be paying attention to us, and we want them always sit. Don't go over here. Don't go over there. Like, It's very restrictive. Do you find that I am very restrictive, and dogs, like I'm a dictator, or do you feel like they're able to make their choices, and I'm just stepping in if a dog needs to be advocated for, or if a dog's stepping out of line? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you just let them do whatever they need to do until they, kind of get themselves in a twine.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, they just kind of do what they want to do.
Yeah, and so let me ask you, if you were in a situation, and you look at the way that I approach things, and then you look at the way that trainers approach things, who would you rather be around?
Probably you.
Right?
Yeah.
Because don't you want the sense of freedom that you can make some choices, and you could communicate what you don't like, and you can form relationships with others?
Yeah, without any tools or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cool to see.
Mm-hmm. And so when we look at your, I'm going to say, personal development, and from when you first started out, and then before I got there, what do you feel like you learned? What were your lessons? Did you find that you had anything that was like impactful for you before I got there?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot. I mean, a lot of help, with toys and treats and stuff like that. I thought that's the only reason they liked me. But until we took that away, it's a whole new bonding moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I think I just learned a lot to grow with the dogs and just more depend on them.
Yeah, and so once I came in and you found that the connection with the dogs was way deeper.
Yeah, instead of just...
It wasn't like this neurotic relationship where they're like addicts. Give me the toy.
Yeah.
I need the toy.
Yeah.
It's like a drug addict just wanting some drugs.
Right.
And so as you worked with me, did you find that your understanding of dogs and how you could help improved?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And so as you developed, you were saying that at first the discipline was difficult.
Yeah.
Then it got easier. And do you find that's because you just did it more and found that it was positive and things it wasn't bad?
Right.
There's just this worry that other people of what they're going to say and
right.
do.
So like, when other staff will be walking around and I'm doing my thing, disciplining the dogs, I can just feel the tension coming from them, like going to the cat room or something. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? I can think whatever I want, because I know I'm doing right, but those guys were like, oh my God, you're being so rough with the dogs.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, kind of brush it off.
Yeah, and this is what, to me, it's like, it takes a strong individual to be a good leader.
Right.
I just think that applies to anything. Because if you can't take some heat, some pushback, then I think you have no business leading.
Right. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, because my job is to be able to protect, that number one.
Right.
And so this is where, to me, did you feel like I had your back in the shelter in this process? Do you feel like I was there for you if you needed it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so overall, it sounds to me that the dogs and what you saw, all positive.
Yes.
Some pushback with the people. Not all people, but some.
Just yeah.
And that it makes me think that if there was so much positive outcome, it was all upside for the well-being of the dogs, the day-to-day shelter routines, your job got easier.
Yep.
I know that the financial, I saved the shelter a lot of money on the financial end because it was more efficient. Why do you think they ended up letting me go if it was such a positive thing when it comes to helping dogs?
I think people still talked. I mean, obviously went out there, got on Facebook, more heat started coming into Brightside, and then, a lot of people just didn't want to support a trainer who thought it was abusing and stuff like that. So we were looking for like a people pleaser side instead of just the dogs.
Yeah. So what I hear is this false reputation leaked even more so into the public because the shelter's a more has more eyeballs on it, right?
24/7.
Yeah, and then of course, no one wants to support animal abuse, right? Which makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
But for some reason, I found that no one wanted to actually come and see if there was actually abuse going on.
Right. There's more taking.
They're just following these people that they heard, right?
Yep.
And these people have already been problem before I even got there. They have continued to be a problem, and so they affected others that just were like, yeah, I don't support animal abuse.
Right.
And
right.
and so once I was let go, did they stop running my program or did they try to keep it going?
I kept it going.
Yeah, and they wanted to keep it going, right?
Yeah, they were gonna.
Because they found so much success.
Yeah.
They just were trying to try to get out of the heat zone,
Yeah.
They didn't want that tension.
But there's still that kind of tension before you even left because they realized I was still running the group, so it was still there.
Yeah.
Because you're not there.
And once I left, and you then had to kind of be in that role.
Yeah.
I remember people not having any problem with what you were doing.
No, they were chill.
But they had a problem with what I was doing.
Yeah.
Even though
I was taking on what
you
you
were literally doing what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, bad when Scott does it, great when you do it,
Yeah,
And
I don't know why the reason was.
Yeah, and this is why I think that it just comes down to being very, very personal.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to do with what I'm actually doing. Like, it's just a personal vendetta.
Right.
That they want to take me out, and so I get let go. You continue to do it. Did you find that it was real stressful now being in that position where you're trying to keep things together?
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah. And so after I left and that started happening, did you ever think about how I was handling it now, knowing like kind of more of like what I was really having to go through?
Yeah.
And do you feel like I handled it respectfully? Do you feel like I got out of line? Do you feel like there's any areas that I could improve on? Because to me, I'm looking to get better as a person, and I want to see where I go wrong.
Right.
Like just like the dogs, so then I can discipline myself so that I can become better.
Right.
And so I'm curious if what your thoughts on.
I think you took an approach with the volunteers better than anybody else could, because I mean, they're a lot.
Yeah.
Emotionally, and so I think you did the best that you can, and the ball was in their court. I don't think he did anything wrong.
Do you think that there was anything that I could have ever done to win them over? Or do you think that at the end of the day, it is something that never could happen?
No, I think if anything, the only way to win those guys over if you just left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I started to feel. And that's why eventually, after months and months and months of really trying to connect them, I started thinking this is a lost cause. They're the ones that are ripping this whole thing down. They're the ones that are spreading all this toxic misinformation of that I'm abusive when it's not true, and for some reason the shelter wanted to let me go versus the people that were actually the problem. And to me, from my perspective, I think that it's because it's more of a political thing that people have relationships with these type of people.
Right.
They have money that links into this group, and so they didn't want to sever ties with people that are funding their fattening their pocket.
Right.
And would you agree with that assessment? Yeah. And so I know that at the end you were trying to maintain it because you really care about dogs. I was trying to help from the sidelines.
I don't want dog walkers coming back.
Yeah, and eventually it became where like they didn't even really want you even talking with me. You couldn't even bring a dog to come for me to help you.
Or even texting you. I mean, it was just weird.
And so
restricted.
So then I started recommending that you leave because it literally isn't worth it. Because to me, what I see in you is a very, very caring, compassionate person. Yeah. That this thing is going to, this thing. 1 second. This thing is. Here you go.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the middle of something.
Sure.
We'll talk more.
Okay.
Yep.
See you later.
Yep. But what I see in you is this compassionate, caring person that wants to do well by the dogs. And I think that once you swallow the pill, like in the Matrix, there's no going back. No. You can't, because you just see that what we're doing is actually harming the dogs.
Right.
Because ultimately it gets them killed. You know? And so you wanted to hang in there and try to get out the dogs that you had really formed a deep connection with, correct?
Right. Yeah, like Tessa.
Mm-hmm. And then once you got to a point, you gave your notice, and then what did you start to see after you left? Because I know that we're still connected to a lot of the people that are there because we have great relationships with them. What were you starting to see here after you and I both were gone?
Oh man, the group was on longer. I mean, I was gone for even 2 days, and I trained one of my friends to run group, and I mean, she was doing really good, but she just
can't handle the pressure.
Yeah, I only gave her 2 weeks to learn everything, so of course I'm not gonna say anything about it. It's like that was 2 weeks, a lot to learn. So you just try
I would
best.
say impossible.
Yeah,
I mean impossible. Because we spent months and months together, right?
Yeah.
Before and then we started looking at, okay, here's a day, give it a try.
Yeah.
Right.
And then see what happens.
And then you started really getting a good basic fundamental grasp of things, right? And then how did it feel then when other people would come in and screw things up?
Oh, it pissed me off so much.
Right? Because we care about those dogs. Like, we don't want to see them in those states. We don't want them to be in those positions because the dog pays the ultimate price, right? And I know that there was a woman that they hired on who didn't really want to follow what we were suggesting, right? And ended up creating a huge pack fight that led to injury, right? And then the talk of euthanasia started to come back in, right? And this is something that we don't want to be hearing about,
right?
And especially when we know the dogs and we know what's going on, and this is on the person, not the dogs. And to me, I tried to get that person to feel the blame, feel that heaviness,
Right.
so that, hey, you can learn, right? And that individual had taken the side of the people that didn't like me, right?
Yep.
And she really pushed to get me out of there by making false claims, right? She made a false sexual harassment claim on me. And you were actually there.
I was there.
You were there that day. Do you find that I was sexually harassing her?
No.
No. And so she makes this claim, and she then ultimately, I think this is what sped up
The process.
my process of getting them kicking me out, because now it's the abuse. They've heard that I got off on abusing women. Now this person's saying sexual harassment, right?
Yeah.
It was just a heavy target of, we are going to end this guy's reputation. We're going to rip him down, destroy him. I mean, that's what even the emails were saying they were going to do. And so then afterwards, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Things are starting to be more and more chaotic, right? And she's now spending more time there. And I remember you guys, I think it was you, it might have been another volunteer that said, Scott, you won't believe what this person said about you. And I said, what? And she said, she's saying, oh, I get what Scott was trying to do. This place is chaotic. He was trying to unite us all together and get us on the same page. Everybody's all fighting against each other and trying to do their own thing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
She realized, right, like afterwards.
I think like a week after you left, and then she's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, she realized, this is bad, right? And so, I'm glad that, sounds like she's learning. To me, she was just young and naive.
Right.
Very naive, and it's just how the cards played out. But I think that it's a very emotional thing inside the shelter world, right?
Yeah.
Animal world.
Yeah.
People's emotions are running high because we form deep, deep connections with these animals, even if it's not a healthy dynamic. Right? Like, I've seen people like getting mauled by their dog, but they just love them, like they're very sensitive about things, They could be getting attacked by their dog. I say, hey, we need to start getting some discipline, and we need to start actually seeing where your relationship's going south and why this is happening. And sometimes that's just, it requires us to actually look at ourselves.
Right.
And most people, I find, they don't want to look at themselves. We're trying to escape. And this is why I think a lot of people get dogs, is to try to make ourselves feel better.
Right.
And so then we expect a dog to make us feel better, and then they start creating a lot of stress for us, because then they start biting and attacking, and then we feel so bad because we need to try to get rid of the dog. And usually when they're aggressive, most shelters won't even take the dog, right? The one we were at was one of the only ones within the area, if not the only one in the area, that I think there's one other that comes to mind that would actually take those type of dogs if they could, right?
If you have the room, then yeah.
Yeah, but if not, then I can't help you.
Right.
And so I think that it's like they then have that really hard choice, the thing that they love so much, now they have to kill. But why is it why is it harder to make these shifts so that the dog lives and your relationship starts to thrive?
Right.
Why is it easier to just kill the dog? Why do you think people make that decision over actually looking at themselves and making changes?
Probably because they don't want to.
Yeah, and do you think, and what comes to my mind is, and what I see is that I think it goes back to that society pressure.
Yeah. Like
you were feeling when you were like, okay, I'm going to start disciplining dogs. You felt that pressure. I think a lot of people are scared of how everyone around them is going to respond to the changes that they have to make.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that there's a lot of great things that took place that we, this was a huge development stage for me. I learned a lot. I got woken up to a lot of things because I went into the whole thing being very optimistic.
Right.
I thought we're all going to unite and we're going to make this change and it's going to be wonderful because I know I can do this, And then I started realizing that there's people that care about dogs that just don't know.
Right.
They mean well, but they just don't know, and they push back, and I get that. And then there's some people that they know, but they go what they think is going to be the easiest, the less pushback, the one that's going to keep them the status, the one that's going to give them keep their bank account open and full, you know. And so I want to try to find people that want to look at what I'm doing, really understand, and I'm willing to have those conversations and really show this, so that we can create an alternative to the dog training, to the shelter world. We need something different, at least for the dogs that don't make it with the traditional sense. It's like, look, if dogs, you can get away with doing all that stuff, okay, so be it.
Yeah.
I don't like it because of what I know, but hey,
if it works,
you're getting by, you're getting by. But I think that we definitely need alternatives. Just like there's public school and there's alternative schools now.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think I am. And this is why, like, I switched from the dependable canine into nature and play, because it's like nature's always in play. And if we try to go against it, we're going to have major problems.
Right.
And I think that we need to really focus first on the dogs and the people that this isn't working for. So then we can build up traction.
Yep.
Do you think that sounds like a good approach?
I think it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, because what I saw was that you kind of have to be ready to take the pill.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, people start attacking you. You're creating a lot more problems for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I kind of look at it like being like Morpheus in the Matrix, where he's trying to wake people up, but they got to be ready to do it. And I'm hoping with this conversation that this can start to generate some of that. Hopefully that this will also show people that there's another side to these
story.
Rumors,
Yeah.
this story, right? And that these claims are ridiculous. I'm not saying that I've never made mistakes.
Right.
You know, sometimes I go, ooh, I don't think I needed to discipline that firm, you know? And then you adjust.
Right.
Or, ooh, I don't think I disciplined firm enough. And you adjust. I always say that we're looking for the Goldilocks zone. Just right. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge. But I think that's what we should be on. That's the most humane and respectful way to do it.
Yep.
But we have to understand and give people grace as well to make mistakes and to learn. I find people will give dogs way more of a chance than they give people.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've dealt with so many dogs. I've dealt with dogs that have bitten like 25 people.
And they're still like, I'm keeping it.
and it's like, I'm thinking, man, if a person was doing all this, attacked 25 different people, this person wouldn't be around anymore.
Right.
You know, like it's so. What I think that we just need to start educating people more. I really, really appreciate you being able to sit here, share your perspective. I think it's very, very insightful, and I really do think that people will start to
second guess
a bit. Yeah, because it's not just me trying to like say this stuff. You know, it's like you were there. You know, I was actually in the shelter for like 6 months, and then I was somewhat on the outskirts for another few months. I think I had 9 months total, but we've continued our relationship well beyond on that.
Right.
And we talk pretty frequently, and same with some of the other people there. So these people really support what I'm doing, and they know that like it's not an easy path, right? No, and you experience that too, of that, hey, it's challenging, but this is where we need to become better. We need to become stronger. We need to become wiser, and this is what this allows. And I think that we all want deep connection. It's just like, I want to actually know you. Right. Not just like this idea that I place on you. And I think that's what most people do, you know? It's like, just, this is what dogs are like, and people see a dog that has energy and they go, they need to be exercised.
Right.
You know, it's like
Running on a treadmill.
yeah. So overall, is there any last things that you want to mention or say before we wrap up?
I just hope this video actually helps out a lot. More people reach out to you, see what, this whole thing is actually about, and just kind of give you a chance.
Well, I really,
that'd be good.
yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
And if you guys have any questions or any thing that you want to say, please do it down below. I really enjoy hearing back from people. And until next time.